Squidward, how many are you eating? Squidward! Squidward, you can't eat all those patties at one time! Squidward!
What's gonna happen? Am I gonna blow up?
No, worse! It'll go right to your thighs!
My thighs?
And then you blow up!
It's all gonna go to your thighs. So, it's raining again. You're gonna hear the little pop, 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 pop throughout this video. The video is working fine. The sky is not. The sky is leaking today. I'm actually supposed to be doing siding right now on a house that we're working on, but I'm what you would call a fair weather framer. I'm a summertime construction worker. I don't work in the rain. But I do have something I want to talk about today with regards to health and nutrition, and I think everybody needs to hear this. This is important. I'm gonna drop some hard truths today. Throughout your life, throughout all of our lives, we learn some hard truths. Things that we hoped were not, and yet they were. Things like just work hard. Just work hard. The harder you work, the more successful you be. And, you figure that one out pretty quickly as you become an adult and you find that you're working longer and longer hours and you're going to school and you're working the cashier at McDonald's, you're doing all these kind of sucky things. You feel like you're always working and then you're still not successful. So that's a hard truth that I think every adult has to learn. It's not all about just working as hard as you can. You have to work smarter. You have to be working at the right thing to really see success. And it depends how you define success. That's a different rabbit hole. That's not what I wanted to talk about today. That's just an example of a hard truth. Oh, another one. Every hero that you admired back in the 80s and 90s, think like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Clubber Lang, or Mr. T. What is his real name? Anyways, all of these guys who, us young men, we looked up to them. We thought it was so cool, these awesome action heroes. And they tell you, just work out, eat good, and you could look like us. You could look like Rocky in Rocky 4 when he faces off against Ivan Drago. And then you find out they were all on steroids. That's a hard truth. Anyways, I'm going to drop a hard truth on you today. And the hard truth is this. You cannot outwork a sucky diet. Now, this was a hard truth that I had to come to terms with. When I first got into training, I got into it with this idea that, we just got to get people moving more, lift weights. You'll build muscle. It'll turbocharge your metabolism and the fat will just melt away. By the way, there are many trainers and health gurus who still say things like that. If you see something like that, if you see someone say something like the fat will melt away, it's gonna happen without you even trying. The effortless, don't T-bone me, car. Okay. It didn't look like they were gonna stop. Effortlessly lose weight and gain muscle. If you ever hear things like that, that's marketing bullcrap. Or it's clickbait. Now, I understand the clickbait game. I understand that you have to put things that people will click on. You have to put things that people will click on, otherwise they'll never click on it. But sometimes people take it a little too far and they're just outright lies. So yeah, no, the fat is not going to just melt away. It's not going to be effortless. And you've got to fix your diet. Think of it this way. All of health and nutrition is supported by three pillars. Three pillars holding it up. The first one is, of course, the workouts themselves, the exercise. The second one is sleep, or rest and recovery. Really, sleep. Sleep is so important. If we could fix the world's sleep, we would achieve world peace. All the Islamic terrorists, it's just a bunch of guys who can't get good sleep at night. We should be, instead of airdropping bombs, we should be airdropping melatonin into the Middle East. I think that would fix everything. So sleep is very important. The third one is nutrition. Now, take away any one of these pillars and the whole structure comes tumbling down. Your workouts will suck, you'll feel sucky, and you'll blame the Jews for it for some reason. Workouts, sleep, and nutrition. And the nutrition portion, I've worked with people who we do the workouts together. Their workout program is great. If I do say so myself, their workout program is awesome because I wrote it for them. I know how to write a decent workout program for someone. Now I got this person riding my butt. Okay, they're backing up. The rage is coming down. I really hate it when people are close up behind me. I start having irrational thoughts like slamming on my brakes and letting them crash into the back of me. But that would just inconvenience me as much as it inconveniences them. So I don't do it. Okay, they turned. We're good. I've worked with people. Let's get back on track. I've worked with people who have their workout program is fine. Their sleep is as good as you can expect it to be. I think everybody struggles with sleep at certain points in their lives. Some people just chronically struggle with it. And somehow, despite them working out regularly, despite them moving more, they're actually getting fatter. As they work with me, they're getting fatter. Now, I don't just mean that they're gaining weight. You can expect to gain a little bit of weight if you go from not working out at all to working out, and either your weight doesn't change or it's actually going up. That's not necessarily something to be alarmed by. You might be putting on muscle. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to be putting on muscle. That wasn't the case with these people some of these people who I've worked with. They were not putting on muscle. They were putting on fat. The worst kind of fat. The kind that makes your belly stick out further. And then we have to have a little come to Jesus talk. Like, what's your diet doing? What's going on with your diet? Are you eating more? Have you started eating more since you started working with me? And oftentimes the answer is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to eat more. I'm just kind of eating normal, but I do these workouts and then I'm kind of hungry and I haven't changed any of my eating habits. Like, okay, well, we have to work on that. I can assure you that when people are actually getting fatter, that's really discouraging for all involved. Like I said, this was a hard truth for me. I was hoping that it would be as easy as just making them work out more and watch the weight melt off. Nope. That is not how that works. So yeah, you can't ignore your nutrition. Can't ignore the nutritional leg of it. Of course, then that begs a question. I think. I don't actually know what that phrase means. I just hear people say it. And now I'm saying it. That begs the question, which is more important? The exercise or the nutrition? Because you'll hear people say things like, it's 50% exercise, 50% nutrition. More often you'll hear people say things like it's 80 to 90% nutrition and 10% exercise, or it's all nutrition. Abs are made in the kitchen. That's a popular saying. Abs are made in the kitchen. There's some truth to that. We all have abs. You have abs. Right now, look down at your giant protruding belly. You're probably sitting down as you watch this. Look down and look at your belly poke out. There's abs underneath that. If there weren't abs, you would just fall forward and hit your head on the computer screen. We all have abs. They're there. They're just covered in a layer of fat. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have abs, or they're supposed to be fat there. Most people are seldom lean enough that you can actually see the abs. Or in the words of this Russian bodybuilder, or this Russian powerlifter whose name I can't remember, but I remember the quote because it was exactly right. Abs are not a sign of strength. They just show that you don't eat enough. Yeah, most people are not going to have visible abs. And that doesn't mean that they're not there or that you're weak. But it is true that if you do want to get to a place where you want to see your abs, that's going to be mostly diet. So what is more in diet? Does that mean diet is more important than the actual exercises? No. It's a false binary. You don't choose one or the other. If somebody says, what if I don't want to exercise? You know, how can I optimize my diet? Be like, why? What? What do you mean you don't want to exercise? I'm not even going to entertain that thought. Of course you need to exercise, except for very special cases where if, like, I don't know, you just got into a horrible, bizarre accident and you lost both your arms and legs, so exercise is kind of off the table. I haven't had a client like that yet, so I haven't given it a whole lot of thought. I haven't worked with a whole lot of quadriplegics. But for the time being, I'm working with just normal people. If you're not exercising, you should be exercising. And you should be trying to up your nutrition. So it's not like it's 90% nutrition, 10% exercise, or even 50-50. It's both. Just do both. Enough with this, what's more important. Do both of them. As far as which one you should be putting more effort towards, because that's a legitimate question. Which one, okay, they're both important, you should be doing more of them, but which one should be your emphasis? Well, which one are you struggling with more? There are people who I know, their nutrition's actually pretty good. They don't eat junk food. At least not very much. They don't eat out very often, but they also don't go to the gym. So they just kind of have this kind of shapeless mass. They're not fat, but they're not toned either. There's no muscle there. And that's going to become a problem. I mean, first of all, it just doesn't look very good. You know, that's a little shallow, but we're all a little shallow. The sooner you accept it, the more enjoyable your life will be. We're all a little bit shallow. Accept it. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to work out for the sake of looking better. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, and I understand that's a big if, but if you're enjoying it, please leave a like and a comment. If you're not enjoying the video, still leave a comment. The more sarcastic, the better. If you feel like you need a little more personalized coaching, DM me on Instagram at American_Fitnocrat. If you don't have Instagram, send a raven. But you get people who their nutrition is actually pretty good, but they don't really work out. You get people who are the opposite. They work out a ton. Their nutrition sucks. Again, refer back to the example of people who I've worked with personally, and we literally tried to outwork their crappy diets, and it failed miserably. Which one are you struggling with more? If you're already in the habit of going to the gym often, several times a week, that's not a problem for you. You like going to the gym, you like your strength training, you're getting exercise in, awesome. Focus more on diet. Get your diet figured out. Figure out your macros. Are you getting enough protein in your diet? Are you avoiding 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight? Are you avoiding highly processed foods? Because that's a big one. As I read studies from and books from carnivores, from vegans, from vegetarians, from paleo guys, all these different people with varying opinions. They all seem to agree on one thing. The less processed the food, the better. So, if you're already in the habit of going to the gym, focus on that. Let's get your diet in order. If your diet's already in order, get into a workout routine. Work on that. That's going to be your focus. Your focus is going to be whatever you're not doing. Well, what if you're not doing either? Pick something. Don't try and do it all at once. It's going to be too much and you're not going to stick with it. Unless you're working with a coach. If you're working with a coach, you can take on more at once because now you've got somebody, you've got someone there cheering you on, but also adding a little bit of pressure, so you're less likely to quit. When it starts to become a little bit inconvenient to eat healthy or hit your workout. But start small. Pick something. If you know your nutrition sucks, make it a goal to only go out to eat, once a week, twice a week. The rest of the time, you're gonna cook home cooked meals, minimally processed. Try and cook as much from scratch as you can, and try and up your protein intake. Maybe add a protein shake to your daily diet. Or you could start by adding in workouts. Do at least 1 or 2 workouts a week if you're at 0, and a daily walk. I can't emphasize how much everybody needs to go on a daily walk. Daily walks are highly underrated. So start where you are and just slowly work your way up. But don't ignore any of it. Again, nutrition, exercise, sleep, they're all important. One of these days I'll do one, solely about sleep. But for now, where we're just talking about nutrition, I'm sorry, here's your hard truth. You can't outwork a sucky diet. It's absolutely true what people say. You could when you were a teenager. When you were a teenager, you could eat like garbage. And it didn't matter because your metabolism really was turbocharged. You were growing, your whole body, you were still growing. Well, you're not, that's not you anymore. And it's time to stop being in denial about it and thinking that you can do that. It's a waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of effort. Work smarter, not harder. That's all I have to say about that. But I do want to end with a little a World War II tidbit. I told you I was reading a lot about the war in the Pacific, and here's this really interesting thing that I learned about the battle in the Pacific. This was right after Pearl Harbor. And the Japanese, again, their hope was that America would turn and run, or try and come to the table with concessions after Japan bombed the crap out of us at Pearl Harbor. That's not what America did. America declared war. And so the Japanese said, "Oh, okay, well, I guess we're I think it was General Yamamoto who said, 'We have awakened a sleeping giant.'" Yeah, you sure did awaken a sleeping giant. I think it was Yamamoto. Fact check me if that's not right. It was one of the main Japanese generals who said that. Anyways, they decided, okay, well, I guess we're going to a war with the U.S. The next best thing that we can do is knock out all their aircraft carrier. Aircraft carriers were a big deal. It was basically a floating, moving airstrip. And there weren't very many of them at the time. I think America had four or five of them, and the Japanese had 4. So they were not a common thing, but they were really important. So the Japanese plan, after they'd already bombed Pearl Harbor, their plan was to lure the remaining American fleet to this little island in the middle of the Pacific called Midway. It was midway between the American continent and the Asian continent. They really cooked when they named that island. Call it Midway. Because it's midway. The Japanese plan was to lure the entire American fleet to Midway and obliterate them. Now, it didn't work for a few reasons. One, the American fleet was already at Midway, which wasn't supposed to happen. The Japanese were supposed to beat them there, but for some reason, the American fleet was already there because they had decoded some of the Japanese transmission, the communications going on between the Japanese. The Americans were able to decode it and figure out that the Japanese were about to attack Midway. So the American fleet was already there. And then this is the big this is when the rug really got pulled out from underneath the Japanese. Again, the plan was to sink all of the Americans' aircraft carriers. Well, the Americans, they had their bombers, and they sent out their bombers to go and fight the Japanese fleet. The problem was they didn't know where they were. You know, the ocean is really big. I don't think we can really comprehend just how huge the ocean is. So if you don't know exactly where something is, you're never gonna find it. Even from, 20,000 feet up, looking around, the bombers, they didn't know where the Japanese fleet was. They knew it was close to Midway. They didn't know where it was exactly. So these bombers are just kind of circling around trying to find it. They're running out of fuel. They can't circle forever. And they're just about to turn back. When they notice a Japanese destroyer. It wasn't one of their aircraft carriers. It was just a lone destroyer sailing through the ocean, and they just barely noticed it. It was a miracle that they saw it. They saw just a reflection, something shining in the distance, and it was the destroyer. And they recognized us. They recognized it. They saw it was a Japanese destroyer, so they decided to follow its wake back to. They just tried to follow its wake because they thought, well, maybe that'll lead us to the Japanese fleet. And there's the Japanese aircraft carriers. And just as this group of American bombers, discovers the Japanese aircraft carriers, another group of American bombers, just at the same time, this wasn't brilliant coordination. This was luck. This was pure luck that this other band of American bombers had also discovered the Japanese fleet at the same time. And because of, there was a couple of other things that all had to go right. Like on the Japanese aircraft carrier, they were switching out ammo for their own bombers. So everything, everything was wide open on the aircraft carrier. I'm not totally sure what was going on, but as for some reason, all of their bombs and ammunition were spread out on their decks, on the Japanese decks. It was kind of a mess. So all it took was one direct hit from an American bomber, and the whole thing went up like a torch. And that's exactly what happened. All of these American aircraft bombers, they found the Japanese, and they all started bombing them. They took out 3 of the Japanese aircraft carriers and crippled the 4th one. This was a big moment. Basically, the Japanese went from winning the war in the Pacific with, in the span of about 5 to 10 minutes, suddenly they're losing. That's how important these aircraft carriers were. The Japanese were hoping they could destroy the American aircraft carrier first, but that's not how it went down. If they had been able to do that, if the Japanese had been able to destroy our aircraft carrier, if that group of bombers hadn't noticed that Japanese destroyer off in the distance and followed its wake back to the Japanese fleet, if that hadn't happened, they hadn't sunk the Japanese aircraft carriers, what likely would have happened is the Japanese would have sunk our carriers, and then they would have controlled the Pacific. And then America probably would have had to come to the table and negotiate with the Japanese, and who knows what would have happened after that. If you want to see this in greater detail, watch the movie Midway. It's Roland Emmerich, which I know he did Independence Day in 2012. So you might be thinking, oh, it's just going to be a dumb action movie. No. This is actually, Roland Emmerich went out of his way to make this one pretty accurate, pretty historically accurate. So go watch Midway. It's on Netflix. Anyways, from that moment on, I think the Japanese knew that they were kind of screwed. And from that moment on, it was a war of attrition. The goal was not to beat the U.S. They knew that was never going to happen, but they thought maybe if they kept fighting long enough, the U.S. would just give up, decide it wasn't worth it. And as we've seen, that's not quite what happened. So anyways, that's all I've got for today. Go eat your nutrition. That sounded really stupid. Go eat nutritious food and watch Midway. Thank you for listening. Hey, tell me, have you ever heard someone say something like, oh, fitness isn't everything? Don't listen to that communist gobbledygook. Take pride in your body, take pride in your fitness, and let me help you along the way. Follow me at American_Fitnocrat on Instagram. And if you'd like some personalized coaching, DM me.